Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today the review embargo has dropped on Shadows of Change, which means that I can give you my feelings, my thoughts, as clearly as possible in this video, and believe me, there is actually quite a lot to say. The usual thing needs to be said though, so we do have to jump in with a disclaimer. I am a Creative Assembly content partner. This means that I get to know about the DLC before launch, I get a little bit early access than most, and that means that I'm able to release content earlier than most, but that in no way, shape or form affects my ability to see certain content for how it is. I know some of you might think otherwise because I generally speak very highly of Creative Assembly, but that's not always the case. It's also another reason why I don't put pre-order links on my description of videos or pinned comments and stuff like that. It's not just during bad DLC, but also good DLC. Moral obligation does not allow me to put that there. The reason I make these videos is so that you, my viewers, can be informed, and I do not want to feel like I'm lying to you in any way, shape or form. While earning extra money can be beneficial to obviously a YouTuber, it's something that I can't do. Those kickback links aren't there for you. Those kickback links are put there by creators so they can earn a quick extra buck. That is, regardless of the discount or not, they're still earning money from it, and if the game flops, they've still earned the cash regardless. They've gotten the views, they've gotten the subscriptions. Now, with all that being said, I want to talk about a few things. We're not only going to talk about the DLC, we're going to be talking about the adjoining patch. Keep in mind that development time was spent on this patch, so yes, Update 4.0 is something that you're going to be feeling as a player whether you decide to purchase this DLC or not, so it needs to be factored in alongside Creative Assembly's rather interesting marketing plan for this DLC, certain other projects which could have been affecting this, and not only that, but we'll be talking about, well, the statement. It's got something to do with this. So, without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so prior to the announcement of Shadows of Change, we had just come off the cusp of the release of the Chaos Dwarfs. Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs, a brand new race pack, which had already had a price increase from the standard ones. However, the quality was quite high. You might be asking why that's relevant, and it does actually have a few things here. We had recently been in a very massive downturn for Total War Warhammer 3. The base game release was absolutely atrocious, and it looked like the game was basically stuck on life support for a long time. Thankfully, Immortal Empires and the Champions of Chaos DLC did change that, and the cadence was increased with the Forge of the Chaos Dwarfs DLC, a race that many people had been hyped for, and it was very obvious given fan interaction. The price increase actually was largely ignored. The players were happy with what they saw. The player base had been quite positive about everything, and even more so when the roadmap was finally announced after, I want to say, around 4 to 5 delays that we were expecting this fabled roadmap. It announced 2 DLCs by name and also gave a bunch of faction details there so we know what was to come, and also hinted at the next one, which is very likely going to be Tzeentch. This is in 2024, next year. The grand majority of the player base was actually quite excited, considering that, yeah, factions are getting a lot more work. It does look like Creative Assembly's promise of more DLC more often was becoming an actual reality, and we were going to get a lot of new content. They even tried to overhype stuff in their blog for the roadmap, going, oh, we're getting a legendary hero, hinting it to be Tzeentch. We're getting Immortal Empires achievements, we'll talk about those a little bit later. Race updates too, many people were excited about that. The main thing for me was in the first section for Shadows of Change where they said, 3 new legendary lords, a new legendary hero, and a ton of new units. Remember that phrase because I'm going to be saying it a lot through this video, and you know what? Rather than me saying it, I'm actually going to invite some friends.
A ton of new units.
Thank you, Legend of Total War. That's been kind of proven wrong, but yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later, I guess. In fact, most of the stuff that is actually listed here was pretty much underwhelming. Settlement battle improvements. Big whoop. Nothing really changed. Now, you guys might be saying, oh well, this is the patch, not the DLC. The thing is that the DLC was put under the section for patch 4.0, so it's kind of attached. The development time is all the same. It's very likely that the same devs working on the DLC were the same devs working on the update. So as far as I'm concerned, they're going to be attached regardless of what people think or not. Anyways, let's move on. Prior to the announcement of the DLC, we actually were surprised by something really cool. We ended up getting an ebook focusing around Yuan Bo, which confirmed Yuan Bo as one of the legendary lords for Shadows of Change, but not only that, gave us much needed Cathayan lore, which many people had been asking for. Some of you might remember that Cathay wasn't a fully fledged tabletop army on the tabletop, so finally getting some proper lore and getting it in the form of not only an ebook, but written by a Black Library author. That's incredible. David Geimer is a household name, someone who is well known throughout the Warhammer community, and it was awesome to see that happen. Now, this might not be something that is completely unique. We actually had this for Lady Diaphin before, but it did set expectations that this DLC was going to be incredible, especially since they managed to rope in a Black Library writer. Then came the announcement of the DLC with the 3 main characters, Yuan Bo for Grand Cathay, Mother Ostankya for Kislev, and finally the Changeling for Tzeentch. In fact, what was really surprising about this is most of the people had called it. Not only like creators such as myself through speculation videos, this is in relation to the characters, not the content of the DLC, but also the grand majority of the community. There's still many people asking for Egrim Van Horseman, who many people wanted instead of the Changeling, but I still think that a lot of people were quite excited. That wasn't until we got blindsided with the fact that the price was astronomically high, £20 or €25, depending on where you're from, and yeah, it's very expensive for a Lord pack, considering that from what was revealed through unit rosters and so on, it did look, and it is, in fact, smaller than most Legendary Lord packs that we've gotten. Yes, we've got an extra Legendary Lord, but really, we always had an extra Legendary Lord as an FLC. The player base was expected to pay more and get less. Yeah, fun times that. Obviously people were mad, but a lot of people kept their reservations just in case. Review bombing had already started, but it wasn't as bad as it got later on, because people were still hoping that this DLC and the adjoining patch were going to be as good, if not better, than the Chaos Dwarf release, and that would have been absolutely exciting if we would have had a lot of fixes, you know, stuff that has been there and has been a problem since the release of Warhammer 3 in, God, over a year now. And that all led on to the strangest marketing plan ever. So, yeah, gameplay was being dropped, but the gameplay releases by Creative Assembly were noticeably much smaller than usual. In most cases, Let's Plays would be around 20 minutes long. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. At the end of the day, that's enough to showcase a new faction. Yet here, there were 7 minutes, sometimes even less, and actually much less if you take away all the animation work and all the useless faffing about that they did throughout the whole freaking video. The marketing was just generally bad because it was kind of paired up with random postings for Total War Pharaoh, a game that's not due until October, by the way, and interestingly enough, Creative Assembly didn't even change their homepage, their banners and stuff like that to be Shadows of Change. It doesn't have to happen, but a lot of people did notice it as a very weird occurrence. They do that for every launch. If a new DLC gets announced for any game, they change it to be a character or whatever. It's showcasing marketing, it's showcasing the push and the drive to really, well, get people interested. Yet, again, nothing. The marketing seemed like the worst ever that we've ever seen for the Total War series, not just Warhammer, Total War in general. And then there was something which started raising a lot of red flags. Let's check it out.
You can order or share your thoughts below. Pre-order.
Compass offers powerful boons. See the description below to pre-order, like, or share your thoughts.
So this is only 2 out of the 3 Let's Plays, one of them being 6 minutes and a bit and the other one being 9 minutes, and yeah, there's so many mentions of pre-order, which is something that I have not really noticed that much when it came to Total War Let's Plays. It seems like it's very forced. It seems like they knew, well, management for sure knew, that the new price was going to generate a lot of issues, and they're just trying to drum it into people's heads. I wouldn't be mad, but sounding like typical YouTubers, like, hey, express your comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. Why are you doing this? You're a company, not a YouTuber. I know I'm not the only one who actually felt annoyed by this, because a lot of people were commenting about it, because the quantity of the Let's Plays was just too small. The quality was there. There was loads of animations and stuff, but again, it was a lot of faff, because, well, those are animations that you're not going to see in-game. You're never going to see a lone Cold One attacking a Crowman and stuff like that. Those are just there for marketing hype, and that's all well and good, don't get me wrong. Marketing hype is very, very important. It's just, Show us what we want to see, show us the mechanics, show us the actual gameplay, because people are curious and people are already a bit on edge because of the very high price mark. Still, people were keeping casually optimistic. They were like, well, they're probably not showing everything. They're making sure that they're leaving stuff out for the creators. That's something that they normally do, just so the marketing hype can be done by, essentially, the free labor, myself and other creators included. We don't get paid by Creative Assembly. That's something very important to note, because some people seem to think that we're on the payroll. Believe me, we're not. But, yeah, you'd think, well, you know, they're doing the Let's Plays, roll on the creators. And that would have been the case were it not for 5 minutes before our embargo. This would be the content partners such as myself. Guess what? A statement drops. A statement which probably was written in about 2.5 minutes and not a second more. This went into detail regarding a number of things, like, for example, costs going up. Which, yes, fair enough. Costs have been rising everywhere, and yeah, it's not just going to affect our normal day-to-day lives, it's also going to affect gaming too. However, such a sharp and really violent rise in terms of pricing does come to quite a shock. There was no actual explanation as to why the price had become so high. Instead, it's again just, hey, this is happening. We're not going to tell you why, we're not going to give you an actual reason. And many people took it as a threat when they read the following. However, this is the business reality of supporting Warhammer 3 and ensuring we're able to offer the years of extra content that are currently planned. My god, have I heard bullshit before, but this one is interesting. So, I don't know if Rob is a full man here, because a lot of these companies will put someone's name and face out there to make them the fall guy, but Warhammer is your best performing series. If you don't know, maybe you're a member of Creative Assembly and aren't aware, but you have increased size from like 400 employees all the way up to close to 900 because of the success of Warhammer. It's your only active game, yet there are like 5 titles that have not been announced just yet, right? We know that they're working on another Total War game, and no, I'm not referring to Pharaoh here. We know that they're working on a console game, and, well, there's obviously Hyenas. The money that's being earned from Total War Warhammer 3, from its DLCs, from the base game, from pretty much everything related to Warhammer, is going directly to feed those other projects. And yes, this is a natural business thing. This is something that is very common. Money earned from one thing goes to another project and so on, but don't come out and say such is the cost of supporting Warhammer 3 when everyone very much knows that DLC stuff is cheaper to produce than a base game. So why are you charging a third of a base game as a actual DLC product? Especially for something so small. This isn't a race pack. This is a Lord pack. You're only adding in some basic stuff. You're using and reusing rigs and animations because it's very obvious when you look at the content in Shadows of Change. Not only that, but Creative Assembly does have a history of reusing animations and rigs when it comes to games, not just DLCs. You can see that as time progresses. If you've played enough Total War, you'll see that. We also know from other interviews that Creative Assembly have said, yeah, we are comfortable with reusing mechanics where applicable because it makes sense. That was obviously something that we've seen many, many times in Warhammer 3 already with the Forge of the Chaos Dwarves, even Champions of Chaos, which actually took from Troy. The Forge of the Chaos Dwarves took from base game Cathay and just updated it a little bit. So what is the cost of actually supporting Warhammer 3? I and many others don't mind the money going into other projects. At the end of the day, we all know this is a normal business thing. Just don't lie to us. The prices are up because you have no other active titles and you are bleeding cash. Pharaoh's coming out soon and I'm mildly optimistic for that because I do like the CA Sophia team. I think they're actually quite good. But there's also, for example, Hyenas, which many people are expecting this year. I believe they did say it was coming out in 2023. They've shown gameplay, they've streamed it, I believe, once or twice, and then unlisted the VODs because, well, I'm assuming they don't actually really think that this is going to go well. I saw one of the streams, it had 50 viewers. You telling me that's going to be a big title? How long has Hyenas been in production? We know next to nothing about it just yet, and yeah, that's where the money is going. Now, I'd look at it more optimistically if they actually started showing off proper gameplay. The gameplay trailer was pretty much, again, a typical trailer where it wasn't really gameplay, it's pre-rendered footage. The minuscule amounts of gameplay that's actually in those trailers is nothing. Either way, that system of game is pretty much dying because that type of game has been pretty much on life support since Blizzard decided to screw everyone over with Overwatch 2. There's obviously other titles there, but that's the most well-known one. And people aren't just pissed off about the statement. This is a big thing, right? Everyone started review bombing because they're angry. The statement was the straw that broke the camel's back because the game had been left in such a poor state. Patch 3.1 broke a lot more than it actually fixed, and they had the audacity to basically say, oh yeah, these things now work. It's like, well, why wasn't this working when it was announced? Why did so much stuff break in 3.1 and got left unattended to till patch 4.0? Why was there no hotfix? Is there just not enough people supporting the title right now? Are there not enough devs? Are they not getting the funding they need? Are they not getting the resources they need? This is the problem. People are angry because the game that many people have put a lot of time into and a lot of money to, remember that Warhammer 3 is not a cheap series. People expect the support. I'm imagining that people wouldn't have cared too much about the pricing if things would have worked as intended, if everything worked as, well, announced. There were loads and loads of patches would say, oh, Tyrion's Songfang quest works. But in reality, it actually took 4 or 5 patches to actually make it work, which, again, that's why people were mad. People are mad because of the state of the game. And it says a lot about it when literally 16 plus minutes of this review is centered around the build-up to the actual content. But now we get to jump into game, and the thing is, I'll be very honest with you, there's some things I do like and there's some things that I don't like about what we're getting for this rather expensive DLC. There's 3 factions that needed quite a lot of help, and yes, they've gotten a bit of help overall. They've gotten some new units to fluff them up, some stuff doesn't really make sense, but yeah, let's just jump right in. We'll start off with Yon Bo and Grand Cathay, as that was like the first big hype, right? A new Cathayan dragon, a completely free ebook alongside him, and, well, you know, some kind of hyped up units, right? Now, it's important to note one thing. I will be discussing a few bugs that I've been dealing with myself during the early access period, which may or may not be gone by the time of release. I am recording this section right now, and the game has actually been updated, so stuff could have changed. The problem is this is something that happens very often. But the character is decent. It's just in his dragon form, whether or not it's been fixed or not, he couldn't really do a lot of damage because his animations would not actually make contact with other hitboxes. It's kind of annoying. In terms of mechanics, I mean, it's cool. The Matters of State is probably the most unique thing, and I must admit, it is very thematic with someone who is an administrator. As you're boosting up cities, turning them into war towns or industrial districts, getting some other bonuses there, it makes a lot of thematic sense for the character that we know a lot about now thanks to the ebook. The other stuff, well, which is the campaign, I mean, it's alright. We couldn't really show you the final battle until today, and I'm not going to bother doing that because why? Why would that be hidden away until the review day? Mind you, I try to leave the final battles out of my content anyway because those are stuff that remain with spoilers, and it's just not cool to spoil stuff for you. The other mechanic is the compass, and I mean, big whoop. 4 new directions added to the compass. They're powerful in their own right, and you have to do a few things to actually be able to get them, but it's not really a inspired new thing, is it? It's just something reused and added a little bit further onto. I wouldn't even say that the mechanic is reused, it's just updated a little bit, mostly because it's something that we know that Grand Cathay has base game, so yeah, I mean, it's not really looking good. With the bugs, such as the very famous caravan bug that you guys might have seen already, yeah, Cathay is pretty much one of the most powerful factions. Hopefully that bug has been fixed, because it's kind of ridiculous. By turn 60, you can end up with 500,000 income in a 5-turn tick for a caravan. It's too much. It is way too much. When the bug gets fixed, the faction will get weaker, but it'll still be fairly powerful, as you still get very powerful faction-wide bonuses through turning them into, like, military districts and so on. Yeah, it's a good faction. Playing-wise, it's kind of fun, and it's definitely more enjoying than playing Meow Meow. In terms of Cathay roster, it's pretty damn small for 25 euros. You get a new generic lord, the Celestial General. You get 2 types of cats, basically just reusing assets and recoloring them. The Jade Lion and the Jet Lion. The Zhang Yu War Drum, which is likely going to get nerfed, because, yeah, it's way too strong. And the Onyx Crowman. They're all units that people have been expecting, but the fact is that it's not enough for Grand Cathay. Grand Cathay has been told through the lore to be one of the most diverse and largest nations in Warhammer Fantasy. This is newer lore too, so where exactly is the newer stuff? We were expecting at this point a melee hero, something that a lot of people have been requesting for Grand Cathay, which is kind of funny that there's characters that increase melee attack and melee defense to heroes, but I'm very much doubting that you're going to send your Astromancer directly into melee combat now, aren't you? Yes, this is called future-proofing, but yeah, it's not ideal at this point. The added roster is small, and it is actually smaller than, well, most Lord packs, which is kind of disappointing.
Ton of new units.
Thank you, Cody Bonds. Yeah, again, if they say a ton of new units, I'm expecting a ton of new units, not less than what we normally would get anyways. Now, if I looked at Yombo as a standard Lord pack, one that we would get for the usual pricing, yeah, I would say that this is pretty good. It's a faction that I actually quite enjoyed playing. The only problem is that the bugs did put me off, but hopefully those things get fixed. I know that there's been a stealth update the day before. This is literally the day before the DLC goes into review embargo, but it's very unrealistic for a creator to be able to go back and recheck everything. If anything, it's kind of shameful to see an update happen now. If any of those bugs have been fixed, well, you'd be expecting those bugs to have been fixed prior to be able to have all your creators show stuff off. But just giving a basic ranking in terms of fun factor out of all the 3 Cathayan factions, I would honestly give, Yombo, I'd probably give around a 7 or an 8 out of 10. It's not too bad, it's fairly enjoyable, and overall, yeah, he gets a 7 or an 8 out of 10 in the Shadows of Change in general. He would have gotten more if he would have had some more unique stuff, but hey, we're expecting Cathay, at least at this point, I'm expecting Cathay to get as much attention as the Skaven did in Warhammer 2. There has to be a reason why Creative Assembly stated in the lore dumps that there were 5 active dragon children. We have 3 now, so there's probably 2 more to come. Okay, so now we're going to move on to Tzeentch and the Changeling. This is a character which took a few people by surprise, but I was pretty much expecting, considering that he is a fairly big name. Creative Assembly were obviously keen, and Games Workshop do mention him a lot throughout all the Warhammer settings, so he is a fan favorite. The Changeling is a rather interesting character because he is incredibly unique when compared to pretty much every other faction. He's not building an empire, he is building a cult empire. You're moving around, fucking about. You're basically the ultimate troll, and I must say, out of all the factions, the Changeling might be my favorite. Yeah, I know, it's not all going to be negativity in this review. The faction is very inspired, and it is so unique that it made me actually have a lot of fun, despite the drama that was ensuing and was continuing to happen. It's essentially an easy mode. It's very, very, very hard for you to lose this campaign, because as long as you're pretty much hiding your locations, you can lose all your armies and you can just start afresh. The fact that your armies are also hidden if you've built the correct buildings makes it very good for you. It means that you can essentially just troll and prepare yourself, strike when the iron is hot. It obviously makes sense from a cult perspective, and it makes sense as the Changeling too. A lot of work went into the Changeling. It wasn't just the fact that it's a unique thing, but you've got all these different quest lines, you've got these really interesting schemes with the theaters included, where you get more in the Immortal Empires, by the way, than you do in the Realm of Chaos. The campaign gives you purpose, and it gives you reason. This means that you're able to start off a fresh campaign, and after you're done in the Empire, you can go off to Lustria, or you might decide to go down to the southern areas, such as the Badlands, or why not just go to Cathay? The options are endless, and it does allow for replayability. The end game is obviously going to be the same, but it allows you to just have some fun. What I've been doing in my own campaign, the one that I was streaming, is, go down to the south and boost up Kairos. Use Kairos as the Empire builder whilst I kind of push him with the puppet strings. And I feel like that's really, really cool. You get a real Tzeentchian vibe here, more than other Tzeentchian characters like Kairos or even Village could even have. So I am so impressed, but it's very, very, very clear that the majority of the development time was put onto the Changeling. He actually had the least bugs out of all of them too, which was quite surprising, but then again, someone must like Tzeentch when it comes to the developers, and I don't blame them. This must have been incredibly fun to plan out and actually put into motion.
A ton of new units!
Thank you, Monsters Abound. Yep, it was going to happen. I was going to mention it here too, and I'm going to mention it a lot, mostly because Tzeentch does suffer from the lack of special, unique stuff. They've got the Cockatrice, very cool unit, the Mutilative Vortex Beast, which isn't actually a Tzeentchian monster, it's more an undivided thing, and, the Zangors. There's a lot of drama that's focused around the Zangors. Only 3 units, as opposed to some other factions getting 4. The good thing is obviously that they did get 2 legendary heroes, a called Hellbrass, who is free, and the Blue Scribes, who is a paid-for legendary hero. They're both available to a multitude of different factions, chaos-oriented of course. The big issue is that, well, Tzeentch is still missing a decent amount of stuff, including some Lord and Hero variants that would have been very much welcome here. I've said this in a previous video, they've got a missing Flamer hero and missing Lord and Hero variants for the Mortals. It's something that is desperately needed just to flesh out the roster alongside some possible other units. A lot of people were hoping for Zangors to have some other variants too. While we're at the topic, the Zangors, I know a lot of people were expecting the AOS version. I was too, but I'm assuming Games Workshop said no here. Games Workshop are the big factor, and I kind of made my peace once I saw the mobile game Chaos and Conquest use the original look. The one that you see with these ones in Total War. They're a Warhammer Fantasy game, and if they weren't given the rights to use the AOS look, then we wouldn't either. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. I know people are disappointed, but Games Workshop are weird, and there's nothing you can do. If you think you can fight with Games Workshop, believe me, it's like hitting a brick wall. That's why Warhammer Plus is a thing. Tzeentch, in the end of it, isn't really missing much, barring unit variants and a few other stuff kind of lost in lore, which makes me think there is a possibility of either character packs, unit pack DLCs, or another Tzeentch-focused DLC. And since we know this game pretty much only has 3 to 4 years left, they're going to try and milk as much as possible, but I don't think taking content that should be in one DLC and cutting it into 2 DLCs is the right path to do so. If I have to give a rating towards the Changeling, in general, I'd give it a 10. I really enjoyed this. This was very different. We need stylized campaigns. They don't have to be all like unique and not being empire builders, but we do need stylized stuff to make it feel different. We're getting Monogod factions now, right? So next we're going to get a Nurgle DLC, so I'm hoping that if it ends up being Tamukon, it will play very different to a standard Nurgle faction. Like Kugath, unfortunately, is just not fun. If we get a Sinesh DLC, which is after that, I'm hoping that whatever character ends there ends up playing differently to Nakari. And when we get a Khorne DLC, I really hope it's not Skulltaker. It needs to play different to Skarbrand. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of this. I would give it a very high praise. I am very happy about it. I will say one thing, though. It's going to be an absolute freaking ball ache for you to deal with if you're like the Empire or any other faction, because he's going to be very difficult to get rid of. For the player, it's almost next to impossible to lose unless you make a lot of mistakes. The same thing could be said to the other faction, to the NPC faction. If you remember that I posted a 500-turn time lapse, yeah, the Changeling was still alive. Despite the fact that most other factions that were associated with chaos or even destruction were long gone by that point, the Changeling was alive and well. God knows what he was doing, but he was still there. Alright, and now for the last bit of paid content. This is Kislev and Mother Ostankya, a character that I'd love to tell you more about, but we just know nothing about her. Yep. So, rather than getting Baba Yaga, someone that we have established in lore, we have Mother Ostankya, who didn't have an ebook. We don't know exactly what she is. Any little bits of lore that we do have on her in-game literally is just copy-pasted from Baba Yaga, which literally just makes me think that it's the same character, just renamed for copyright purposes, even though Creative Assembly have actually gone on record saying that she's not Baba Yaga, she's an entirely different character. I mean, if you're mirroring the same stuff, you're either a cheap imitation or you're them wearing a different mask, right? The campaign itself is fine. I mean, it's just kind of boring. I mean, one big issue here, right, is you can't recruit the proper Kislev units, the base game ones that you paid $60 for, or whatever currency that you pay for, until you either take over a Kislevite settlement like Kislev, Prague, or Erengrad, or you ally up with a Kislev faction. Until then, you're stuck with spiders, essentially. I mean, yes, you have the Akshina ambushers, the thing in the woods, and so on, but your baseline cheap units are those and basic Corsairs. Well, some people would say, oh, well, that's just basically Skarsnik. It's true, Skarsnik can only get Knight Goblins and basic Goblins. At least the Goblins can be used in quite a devastating way. It's odd. It's odd. It does feel like this one had the least attention, especially when you look towards the hexes. The hexes are very cool in theory. It's Grom's mechanic just kind of changed around, and I do like the system. However, it's kind of broken. It's very easy to be exploited. You can basically just win battles without actually fighting because you can have enough of the hexes running around doing damage and killing off the army before it even gets to you. It's an odd thing, I must say. I kind of already lost interest when we knew nothing of this character. When we saw the ebook for Yuan Bo, I was like, okay, cool, we'll get some context regarding Mother Stankia. And, yeah, no. I guess you have to pay 25 euros to get a Mother Stankia ebook. I'm kidding there. They wouldn't charge 25 euros. Games Workshop would probably do that. But I really doubt that Creative Assembly would charge for a ebook.
Wow, a ton of new units.
Thank you, Colonel Damders, because if there's any time to say, wow, a ton of new units, it's obviously Kislev. So, Kislev gets the furries, the Ashinka ambushers, which are horrendously overpowered, though I imagine that they're going to be nerfed at some point. A hag hero with the lore of beast, the lore of shadows, and the lore of death. I mean, okay, cool. No lore of hags. Bit of a shame, considering that it's something that's really embedded into Kislevite lore, but yeah, I mean, you're paying 25 euros. If this was 30, then you could get your access to the Lore of Hags. No Lord choice either, so you're running your armies with either Ice Witches and a bunch of spiders, or Boyars leading spiders. The Incarnate Elemental of Beasts is absolutely amazing, yet really has no historical ties to Kislev. It's more of a Beastmen Empire thing. They have an incarnate. Kislev already has the elemental ice bears. But I think my biggest gripe is the thing in the woods, because it's a chaos creature. The item card even says it's a chaos creature when you go onto the little lore distinction on the multiplayer battles and so on. Why is a chaos creature being held by a Kislevite faction, right? They would naturally kill it by any chance. We know of these creatures because of the Mordheim scenario and all that from the tabletop way back in the day. A chaos creature needs to be in with the chaos factions. It doesn't need to be here, right? It's silly that it's with Kislev, and it annoys me to no end. Especially since Kislev pretty much only got one new unit, and those were still in lore already. We know Games Workshop are working on a Kislev army book. Why isn't that being used? What happened to Frost Fiends, for example? Stuff that we know in lore. Why is Cathay getting new units and new unique stuff, but Kislev suffers? It's absolutely frustrating, and yeah, I'm not pleased. If I can be honest, the campaign is fairly decent, and I did enjoy the quest battle system. A lot of quest battles for these factions, which is actually kind of nice. But if I had to give it a rating, due to the fact that just Kislev feels so odd compared to any other factions, I'm gonna have to give it like a 5. Yeah, it sucks to say this because I was really excited, but yeah, no Hag Lords, no whole lore of hags, no anything that fits with the theme, no Ungles? Where the hell are all the other Ungles? Yes, we're likely to get more DLC for Kislev. This is pretty much a given, considering that there was concept art posted about, you know, the whole Golden Knight and so on. But, yeah, it feels like a lot of content is being cut, or if they just want to make it as small as possible to try and bleed out as much as they can. There is one thing I can actually praise from this DLC, is the fact that stuff is being implemented and given to other factions. The Incarnate Elemental of Beasts going to the Beastmen, for example, the Cockatrice and the Vortex Beast going to the Warriors of Chaos. This is stuff which fits really, really well. Because at the end of the day, Chaos factions will trade and use similar units, sometimes the identical ones, so this all makes a lot of sense. Now, hopefully, this doesn't mean that we're going to miss out on future content while other factions that deserve it, because the Beastmen still require a few things here and there. Not going to lie, when it comes to this, it does kind of feel like Creative Assembly are either running out of ideas, or they've just given up hope, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But now we have to talk about something else. FLC, because yes, free content also falls in the same development cycle as the DLC, so you're still paying for it even if you're not actually paying for it directly. And this is an important thing, because we're actually getting less FLC than we normally are, and yet nobody is bat an eye towards that. So, how the system works now is instead of getting an FLC Legendary Lord, we're getting an FLC Legendary Hero. That's all well and good, but the FLC Legendary Hero is through Total War Access. We used to get one, sometimes two things from Total War Access, and then a FLC Legendary Lord in the form of a zero-costing DLC on Steam. So yes, we are actually getting less FLC content, which is kind of surprising because we're paying much, much more. I wouldn't mind if we paid, say, for example, the 25 that they're expecting in terms of euros, if they also decided to throw in another Legendary Lord, because, well, yeah, we deserve one, I think. If they're gonna do this, we deserve more content, and it's kind of odd that they just seem to be skimming down as little as possible. And let's be honest, the fact that they're wanting people to get the FLC through Total War Access, or whatever they're calling it now, the CA account, Total War account, whatever, it's so they can use marketing emails. This is why a bunch of people got their email for Shadows of Change, but it was listed under Hyenas. It's so they can have a email list and spam you with products that you don't want. See, I don't mind, because I can easily just put that on, mute or whatever, but it's kind of scummy to only put the FLC there. And in general, there should be more FLCs. If you're going to increase the price that much, fine. Don't give us Legendary Lords. Maybe just do another Legendary Hero. Maybe just do another unit or two as FLC to fix up another race. They've done that in the past. They did it in Warhammer 1. They did it in Warhammer 2. Why are we not seeing this for Warhammer 3? Alright, so we've spoken about all the content, or lack thereof. Now I've got to give you my thoughts. Yes, I have enjoyed playing with these factions, and I feel like they're going to get a lot better after a few weeks post-release and some mods come in to add in all the missing stuff. I already know some modders who are basically doing that already. But this Lord Pack is not worth this money. I really hate to say this, because you guys know me well enough. I love Warhammer Fantasy and everything associated with it. It's a big reason why I play this game, because it is Warhammer Fantasy. Grid Assembly gave me a game which is so close to the tabletop feeling. I'm so happy about that, especially after the end times, where I thought that my childhood setting was going to be gone forever. And as the years went on, things got better and better. I don't know what the hell happened with the launch of Warhammer 3 and then just the general thinking here, but I feel like the heads at Creative Assembly are just giving up with this, possibly planning to move on to Total War 40k, because that's what it really feels like it, and we've all heard those rumors. They are quick to abandon titles. This is not the first time, this is not the last time. I'm hoping that I'm proven wrong and they will bring back everything, bring back the joy, but I'm telling you, this is not worth £20. Yes, £15 would have been fine. I think that would have been a fair price, but this is not worth the money at this current state. It's absolutely disappointing. It is honestly very, very disappointing. I was hoping for so much out of this series, especially with Warhammer 3, now that we actually have a world map, now that we have so many possibilities, and it's looking less and less likely if this is going to be the future format. If this is going to be the future pricing, and the content does not equate to the price, then this is not going to be worth it, and people are going to leave. I very much doubt that the devs are trying to make this look bad. I feel like the devs are trying as passionately as possible with very little resources and very little support, because it's very clear when you look at certain things on how amazing stuff looks, how great the concept of stuff is. The Tzeentch faction is probably the best example here, but people are not going to be able to play with them because, yeah, they're not going to be able to justify such a high purchase. It's become noticeable. Not only just the CA, I imagine that everyone's noticed there is a massive lack of interest in the game. Even creators aren't really playing with it too much. Some of them have outright stopped and moved to other titles. I, for example, and I can give you this example, you guys know me well enough, I normally used to do during content releases 2, 3, 4 videos a day. The statement screwed me over. Not only were the videos performing that well, and they started performing a little bit better as time progressed though, it's more my motivation just kind of died. We didn't know about this. There was no way to prepare for it. Well, there wouldn't be a way to prepare for it anyway. That's something that would have caused a lot of rage. But you understand what I mean. When you're working on something and the wind gets taken from your wings, essentially, it sucks. You guys know how much I love this game. And it really sucks that this ended up killing my interest a bit. If any of the devs from Creative Assembly are listening, you're doing your best. I understand this. And don't you worry, nobody blames you for the situation. Nobody blames you for the amount of bugs and stuff, because it's very clear it's a management issue here, not a development issue. And if anyone from higher management is listening, you need to do better. This is your cash cow. You're going to release, hyenas? It's not going to make that much money, I promise you. I feel like Pharaoh will do good, but I feel like Pharaoh is going to suffer thanks to this recent shit show, because people still remember Free Kingdoms. People still remember broken promises. The only thing that this happened is it just opened up the wound, and dare I say it, probably opened it up further than it once was originally. People will think twice before buying into Pharaoh. Pharaoh could be the next best thing, and people will be very, very understandably cautious. The next Total War game, whatever it may be, we know it's in production. You've stated on Twitter that you're looking for people to work on the project. Again, people will look towards that and think, maybe I should wait until reviews come out. Maybe I should wait until it just comes out on sale. As for Warhammer, look at your creators, look at your bigger name creators, and I'm not just saying myself, I'm saying all the others who are flat out not covering this content because their motivation was killed. Products that they love, that they have followed religiously for the past, 7 years that this series has been out. I'm not going to rant them out, but it's very obvious on who they are, but they've gone on record saying it just doesn't feel the same. So they're covering different games. I'll tell you what, it sucks when my channel was basically just formed to be a Warhammer Fantasy channel. I don't mind covering another game every now and then. You've seen me cover 40k games and so on. But all I wanted to do was have a channel based on Warhammer Fantasy, and it really sucks when that motivation is being killed. Because I'm one of those creators who posts every single day, and yeah, even I'm feeling a tad burnt out. It's not great. It's not great. This DLC system either needs to be reduced in price or have content to justify it. Because what's going to happen, I've already lost hope that we're going to get other race packs. I don't think we're going to get Ind, Koresh, and so on, because if you're turning a Lord pack into the price of a race pack, then a race pack, which naturally would demand a lot more work, what's going to happen there? Is it going to turn to 50 euros? Nobody's going to freaking buy that. Nobody is going to buy that at all. Ultimately, it's up to you if you want to buy it or not, and I will not judge you if you do. At the end of the day, it's your own money, but please remember to keep informed, because your decision could affect the future, especially when it comes to this. There have been a lot of weird marketing hypes lately. A lot of big content creators were so happy to take a sponsored amount of money when it came to this. No shade to them, but they are creators who don't have any stake in Total War. They are creators who only play Total War when they are paid for it. So, yeah, fun. We as a community can make Creative Assembly listen. We're not asking for a price reduction. We're asking for content that makes the price worth it. Because if not, then the content is just not going to be good when it comes to 5.0, 6.0, and whatever else they have planned. Let's just hope they actually have stuff planned. I'm not going to accept any more future content with only 3 units, 4 units. I'm not going to accept that. It's not worth it. If you want more money, give us more stuff to play with. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. The community deserves better, because this is a community that have purchased 3 of your titles to make sure that they form into one, and then not counting hundreds of pounds worth of DLC. It's an expensive series. We're here to support it. If Creative Assembly uses that money to then go into other projects, fair play. But not at the cost of the development for the project that people actually care about. Please be advised that at the same time that these reviews go live, the patch notes would have gone live too. It looks like Creative Assembly has fixed a lot of issues that were available during the pre-release content embargoes, but keep that in mind. They fixed them after they noticed people getting angrier and angrier. They fixed them after creators had shown off the issues. These were issues that should have been fixed during QA testing when the DLC was in development and not showcased by creators. It is kind of disappointing because it does feel like we are being used as a smoke shield once again, just like how the statement appeared 5 minutes before our content embargo. It's frustrating, it is disappointing, and it is demoralizing. But I don't want to talk about this too much. I do feel like I'm tired. It's been a fair long 3 weeks with a lot of arguments and, discussions and so on. I have made my feelings perfectly clear on the matter. And yeah, I'll see you all again very, very soon, guys. Have a nice day. If you decide to buy the DLC, it's not going to be held against you. If you decide not to buy it and wait for a sale, good on you too. And if you decide not to buy it at all, you're valid too. Creative Assembly, please learn from this mistake.